Now, if you told me you owned all of the Bitcoin in the world and you offered it to me for $25, I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't take it. Wouldn't take it. Wouldn't take
Hello there, my name is Jonathan. I'm often asked my opinion on a lot of things in the crypto space, being involved with peer plays and whatnot. I thought it would be a good idea to put this video together just so that you guys have some counterbalance to what's being said out there. So without further ado, let's get into it and see what Mr. Warren Buffett has been saying about crypto lately. As you may know, if you've been following crypto for a long time, he's made references to crypto as rat poison squared in the past, just so you understand some context to his current statements now. Basically, where he says that if he was given all the Bitcoin in the world for $25, he would not buy it. So let's see what he really has to say about this, and I'll let you know what I think about this. Here we go.
Well,
And
I shouldn't answer any questions on the subject, but I will.
you probably shouldn't.
There's all kinds of people watching this that are long Bitcoin, and there's nobody that's short, and nobody wants their windpipe stepped on. I don't blame them. I don't like people who step on my windpipe. But
Okay,
I
I'm
would
gonna
say
pause
this.
right there. So his first comments are kind of interesting because he's talking about how everybody's long, nobody's short. He sounds kind of lonely. Maybe he needs a hug. So here we go. I'm going to start again.
That if the people in this room owned all of the farmland in the United States, and you offered me a 1% interest in it, and you said for a 1% interest in all the farmland in the United States, pay our group. Well, let's see, 10 million.
Oh, he's considering this very seriously. Yeah, he wants to buy 1% of
Yeah, it
farmland.
says bargain price.
Make a deal.
$25 billion
Oh, 25 bill.
I'll write
there
you a
go.
check.
That's what it'll take. 25 billion.
this afternoon.
He is.
$25 billion. Now I own 1% of the farmland.
And
If you tell me you
check
own
for that.
1% of the apartment houses in the United States,
Apartment houses, good investment today.
and you offer me a 1% interest, so I'll have a 1% interest in all the apartment houses in the country, and you want whatever it may be for it, then call it another $25 billion or something. I'll write you a check.
He's ready, folks.
It's very simple.
He wants 1% of everything.
Now, if you told me you owned all of the Bitcoin in the world and you offered it to me for $25, I wouldn't take it, because what would I do with it?
Stop right there.
I have to
I'm gonna
sell it.
pause right here. Okay. So, do you see what he did right there? All right. So what you see him setting up is what would be referred to as a false dichotomy, because what he did was he talked about 1% of all the farmland in America and 1% of all the apartments across America, United States, sorry, and then he turned around and said, if you offered me all the Bitcoin in the world, right? So if this is a fair comparison to create like an even dichotomy rather than a false dichotomy, you'd be talking about, if you were to offer me all the farmland in the United States, or if you were to offer me all the apartments in the United States, right? So right now he's setting up a false dichotomy and then saying, if you wanted $25 for it, I wouldn't give it to you. And you know what? He's right in that sense. Because if you were able to have all the Bitcoin in the world for $25, number one, it's something that isn't possible, but let's just play along with his little false dichotomy. Number one, you would be the only owner of it. There's no supplier demand at that point. So the network is useless. You don't have anybody who's looking to buy it. You don't have anyone who's looking to sell it. So as he's going on about this, he's creating a false dichotomy, a false comparison, essentially, right? So this is a bit disingenuous. I like to think that Warren Buffett is smarter than this, although maybe this is his intentions to give this illustration so that those of you who he thinks are not that smart are not going to pick up on it and think, wow, I'm not going to touch Bitcoin. But let's just see where he goes with this, and we'll take it from there. Here I go again.
back to you one way or another. I mean, maybe have the same people, but it isn't going to do anything. The apartments are going to produce rental, and the farms are going to produce food. And
that's right.
if I've got all the Bitcoin,
you have it all.
I'm back where whatever his name was, who may or may not have existed, was 15 years ago. If I've got it all, he could create a mystery about it. But everybody knows what I'm like. I mean, so if I'm trying to get rid of it, people will say, well, why should I buy some Bitcoin from you? I mean, why don't you call it Buffett coin? Make your own or something. What? Do something. But I'm not going to give you anything for it. And you'd be right, incidentally. But that explains the difference between productive assets and something that depends on the next guy paying you more than the last guy got. Now,
I'm going to stop right there. Let's stop right there. Okay. So that explains it. I'm sorry. That's just too funny. That explains it. It actually doesn't explain anything. But listen to what he goes on to say, how if he owns 1% of all the apartments or 1% of all farmland, he's going to receive income from that. So let's go back to the comparison being fair and say that he owned 100% of the farmland. And let's say that he owned 100% of the apartments. Okay. He owns them all. So he has the farmland. And what's happening with that farmland now that he owns all of it? Number one, it's doing nothing, literally nothing. Because if the farmland is just there, he has to put more capital into it in order for it to be productive, as he just referred to, right? He has to actually put more capital for all the farm equipment, all the seed, all the everything that goes into farming. It could be different kinds of farms. I don't know what it is. But if he was to own all of it, he has to put tons more capital than that $25 billion for 1% he put in order to make it productive. If he doesn't do that, if he just owned it, like he compared it to Bitcoin, guess what? It's useless. It's worthless because it's not producing anything unless he puts more work into it, right? So to make that comparison fair, you have to put more capital into these physical assets he's talking about in order to make it actually productive. Same thing when it comes to apartments. You might think, oh, well, people need space. Yeah, people need space. But if he doesn't have anybody out there to give the keys to those apartments or to maintain those apartments or to pay for all the heating bills and all the hydro bills and all the everything else that goes into maintaining properties, how much money is it going to make him? Nothing. Actually, it's going to lose money at a phenomenal rate because there's maintenance to these things. And then let's not forget the government, because guess what the government wants from his land and from his property? Taxes. Lots and lots of taxes. So from the get-go, if he owned 100% of everything, government's going to want a big piece of that. So when you make a fair comparison, you can see that there's actually more capital risk to owning 100% of all the property that he's talking about in his comparison. But if you own 1%, to make it fair, and if you own 1% of Bitcoin, let's go there, right? If you own 1% of Bitcoin, what happens is you end up with a network effect because there's still another 99% out there that are using Bitcoin, that demand it, that are mining it, that there's this ecosystem that's using it. And from that, there is actual capital value that's being generated. So it's so hilarious that this false dichotomy that he's creating. And then he says, well, I've explained it. He thinks you're not that smart, but you're smarter than that. So you should, pay attention to this. Anyways, those are my thoughts on that now. Let's keep going because I think he might say something else interesting. Maybe he'll redeem himself. Let's hope. Please, Mr. Buffett, redeem yourself. I'm going to start again. Here we go.
If you look at it, a lot of commissions have been paid, and there's all kinds of frictional costs that are very real that somebody has paid to a bunch of people who facilitate this game. But whatever one group of the public has taken out, or one group of owners, has come in from other people. It's other people have entered the room and they move money around. But
that's what it is.
But there's no more money in the room. It just changed hands with a lot of maybe fraud and costs involved and, a whole bunch of things. You lose, you forget the numbers or forget the equation. They, you can do that with a lot of things. I mean, it's been done throughout history.
I have no idea what he's talking about now.
Certain
What's
things
your point?
have value
Certain things have value, yes.
that don't produce something tangible.
That's true.
I mean, you can say a great painting, probably will have some value 500 years from now. May not.
500 years.
The odds are pretty good that if it was a big enough name at some point, there will be a few things. I mean, you can find something. If somebody wants to sell you a pyramid or something, and you can charge the viewers, or it'll be around a long time and won't produce anything. But people will find it interesting to go there because I've read about the pyramids. But basically,
They'll pay land tax on their property.
assets to have value, they have to deliver something to somebody, and there's only one currency that's acceptable in the United States. I mean, you can come up with
I'm gonna
all
pause right
kinds
there.
of
Hold on. I gotta pause right there. Oh my god. I'm sorry. He brought $1 to this event. Or I don't even know if that's $1. Is that $1? It looks like maybe $10, maybe 100. I think it might be 100. I can't believe when he came to this event, he brought a paper bill with him to try to make his point. He needed props to be able to say, "This is money." I'm sorry. This is just too much. Wow. Just wow. I'm sorry. It's too funny. So Mr. Buffett needs to be able to hold a little bill to be able to say, "This is money." I could be holding a hardware wallet, like a Bitcoin hardware wallet, like a ledger, and say the same thing, saying, "This is money." I could do the same thing, but it seems Mr. Buffett is not familiar with these things. So let's hear a little bit more. I'm sorry, it was just too funny that he actually brought a bill to make this point, and it's just hilarious. Anyways, let's keep going.
We can put out Berkshire coins, or we can put out
Berkshire coins,
Berkshire money, or anything like that. But we get in trouble, I guess, if we call it money. But in the end, this is money.
Okay.
And there's no reason in the world why the United States government, whose currency people prefer, there's just under 2.3 trillion just of these little pieces of paper floating around some places, 7,000 for every man, woman, and child in the United States. And of course, most of them probably aren't in the United States. Who knows? But this is the only thing that's money. And anybody that thinks the United States is going to change to where they let Berkshire money replace theirs, is out of their mind. I mean,
hold it right there.
So anyway,
what is he talking about? The United States is going to let Berkshire money replace theirs? So he just went from talking about how the US dollar is the only money, which is a ridiculous statement in itself. Last time I checked, every single country in the world has their own money. So he seems oblivious to the entire Forex world in his statement, saying the US dollar is the only money. That's crazy. Now, I'll give some leverage, and not leverage, but I'll give some, to be fair, maybe he's referring to fiat as being the only real money. In other words, government issued money. He said that it's the only one that's preferred. He goes on about how he seems to know all the stats about how many of them are there. There's billions all over here, and then mostly probably in the US and all this kind of stuff. He couldn't, if we were to ask him right now, how much energy is going into the Bitcoin network? I bet you he couldn't answer that. He couldn't answer that because he knows nothing about it clearly, or even how it works. So I just thought, I thought that was hilarious. But then I didn't understand that last part about how the US is going to take Berkshire money and ask to use another one. What Berkshire money? Does he think the US dollar is Berkshire money? I didn't quite get that. It's kind of a weird reference. It was almost like he feels or thinks that he owns the dollar, or he's in control of it. Like Berkshire is in control of the dollar or something. Like that's what the statement sounded like. Like the US is going to come and tell them to convert Berkshire money, not US dollars, Berkshire money, into something else, and he thinks that's ridiculous. Uh, that whole thing is ridiculous. So I don't understand it. Let's keep going. Let's hopefully there's some redemption here, please.
With those few deficiencies, you know, you can, whether it goes up or down in the next year or 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. But the one thing I'm pretty sure of is that it doesn't multiply, it doesn't produce anything. It's got a magic to it, and people have attached magics to lots of things. I mean, the gold on Wall Street, create magic. You know, we are not an insurance company; we're a tech company. Well, they're an insurance company, but a dozen people or so have raised a lot of money. They just say, just don't pay any attention to the fact that we sell insurance. We are a tech company. Well, in the end, they wrote insurance, and overwhelmingly, they've lost a lot of money since then. You can make up things that work well and getting money from other people, and that's why.
Okay. So we got to the end of that. I think that it's interesting that he ends off by talking about how I guess he went into a bit of a rant there where he started talking about you're not an insurance company, you're not a tech company, you're an insurance company, and this kind of thing. Maybe that's some kind of case where there's an insurance company that has been introducing their offering with a focus on technology, and he's trying to poke fun at that, saying, "No, you're not really a tech company, you're an insurance company, and these are just tricks to raise money." And that is probably the only accurate thing I saw in this whole video. It's true. I can remember when blockchain back in 2017 was super hot, and there were public companies that were actually adding blockchain to their name in order to pump their stock or to get more funding and things like this. And this happens with different sectors all the time. And so whatever is hot at the time. And then shortly after that, AI got really exciting. And then not too long after that, esports got really exciting. So companies will use this as a means for being able to raise more capital. And nothing really wrong with that as long as it's legitimate. But he seems to take issue with his world view being easy to understand and being infiltrated by technology, I guess. We all know that Warren Buffett was late to the party when it came to the internet. He's now seems pretty late coming to the party when it comes to Bitcoin or blockchain or all these technologies. I sense a really strong old economic worldview coming from Mr. Buffett. I do not agree it's going to serve him well going forward, simply because world's changed and the fiat money, the real US dollar, the preferred money that he refers to just had 80% of its supply increased in the last few years. Okay? So the idea that he thinks that it's infallible in this way is just crazy. And probably the reason why he's making these comments is because he's sitting on so much of it. So it's very important to understand sometimes where some people are, what position people are in while they're giving their input on things. As we saw, he clearly was giving a false dichotomy in comparison of Bitcoin to 1% of owning farmland or in apartment buildings, right? So that was disingenuous. I think that it's important that we be mindful of these things when we hear opinions from rich people in the space. And as things change, it's important that we all stick together and we really pay attention to the things that are being put out there because sometimes the opinions being given are not for your interests, they're for theirs. So that's my take on Mr. Buffett's input on $25 for all the Bitcoin in the world. So I'll see you in the next one.